Obviously, your sign is not exactly what this is all about, so why are you out here today?
I travel North America. I'm from Vancouver, Canada.
Okay.
And I travel North America going wherever it's busy just to have conversations about this. So I happened to be in DC. I hadn't intended on coming here.
Oh, so you just luck of the draw, basically.
It's totally luck of the draw. This happened, and I thought, great place to go, lots of media, lots of people.
Yeah. So explain your sign a little bit to me.
So I'm a dad of 2 girls, and we have this epidemic today. We have an explosion of girls who now identify as boys, and they're being given experimental drugs, puberty-blocking drugs, cross-sex hormones, so the opposite sex hormones, and they're even getting surgeries. They're getting double mastectomies as young as 13 years old because of a lie that this is going to somehow make them who they really are. And we should be letting these kids grow up. If they want to transition as an adult, that's one thing. But trying to change the sex of a child is child abuse.
So you would support transgenderism at a certain age?
So I think, ideally, I think these people should be at least 25 years old before they transition. Now, you can't stop an adult from doing what they want to their body, but our brains are still developing until we're about 25. And for kids who are neurodivergent, like on the autism spectrum, for example, their brains are still really developing until they're about 30. And we have a lot of young adults who transition at 19 or 20 years of age who then have deep regrets. There's an explosion of detransitioners as well. So these are young people, kids and young adults who transitioned. All the medical effects have kicked in, all the terrible side effects, all the medical complications. And it didn't make them happier. And they have deep regrets and they've been permanently harmed. So I think they're still too young, and a lot of them were also indoctrinated as children. But my main issue is with what's happening to kids.
I was going to ask about that, the indoctrination thing. It seems more so recently, the whole trope has been going around a lot lately is stop the groomers, that in places where kids are going to be most vulnerable, especially in places like public schools, you tend to see these kind of things being promoted more so than we've ever seen. What do you think about all that?
We've gone away from just teaching English, science, mathematics, to teaching ideology throughout all of our schools to as young as preschoolers. We are teaching every single child these days, depending on the teacher, of course, but it's in all these different curriculums that all these children have what is called a gender identity. It's nonsense. There's no such thing as a gender identity. There's biological sex. But they're teaching these kids that gender identity trumps their biological sex. So if you teach all these children that they have this gender identity, what's the next thing that happens? They have to figure out what their gender identity is. And so they'll look at a resource, like one that's the most popular resource used around the world. It's in all these different schools, even at children's hospitals. It's called the genderbread person. It's a little picture of a gingerbread man, but they don't want to give it a gendered name, of course.
Right.
But it defines gender identity right on there as being based on your personality, your jobs and hobbies, your likes and your dislikes, your roles in society, and your expectations. So what the heck does your job have to do with your gender? This is a regressive, sexist stereotypes. Do your hobbies have anything to do with your gender? Are we telling tomboys that they're actual boys just because they want to climb trees, play in the dirt, throw around a football, and hate wearing dresses? Of course, that's ridiculous. We should be teaching our girls and our boys body positivity. We should be saying they're beautiful just as they are, and that there's no right way to be a boy and a girl. But this gender ideology crowd, these trans activists, are pushing stereotypes to such a degree that they're teaching these children they need to alter their bodies and cause permanent harm in order to find true happiness and be their true selves. It's total nonsense.
Yeah, and they're quite literally a form of self-harm. If you're going through a transition like that and you're essentially putting an axe wound in a child's leg, right? There's not something, you can't come back from that. And so when these kids are being indoctrinated to something like that at such a young age, if they grow up and they realize what a mistake it was, they might be able to change their perspectives on it, but their bodies have been permanently damaged as a result. And adults who are allowing this kind of stuff are complicit in that.
That's right, and we don't even know the effects of hormones on our developing brain. Our bodies are still mysteries in many ways. And whether you believe in creationism or evolution, obviously if you're a creationist, well, we shouldn't be playing God with children's bodies, saying God made a mistake. If you believe in evolution, as I do, we've evolved over hundreds of millions of years through natural selection. We have these extraordinarily complicated bodies with billions of processes going on every day that we don't even understand. And now in this tiny window in history, we're saying that a pharmaceutical company is somehow going to help kids to be who they really are. There's never been a randomized controlled trial with this drug. It's being used entirely experimentally, off-label. This drug was approved to chemically castrate pedophiles, but that's deemed too inhumane these days, so they don't even do that anymore. But it was also approved to treat prostate cancer in men, endometriosis in women, uterine fibroids, breast cancer, never for this purpose, but it happens to stop puberty.
Why not put a total ban on transgenderism? Why do you say cut it off at 25?
Well, people can identify as whatever they want. What are you going to do to stop an adult as identifying however they like? You're not going to be able to stop an adult doing whatever they want to their bodies. But the message we should be sending is that transition is something you do. It is not something you are. And that's how this was historically. And historically, if we look into gender dysphoria, it affected boys way more than girls, and it affected 1 out of thousands. And according to all our academic studies, 80 to 90% of the time, these kids with gender dysphoria, they just grew out of it when they went through puberty. And the majority of them grew up to be gay. Today, we don't give them a chance to go through puberty. We block their own hormones from coming, which is itself the cure for gender dysphoria in almost all these cases. And what's going on today, though, is totally different. It's an explosion of girls who never felt gender dysphoric growing up. They get into adolescence, and this is all the rage. It's in the culture. They're being taught it in school. It's all over social media. And who knows what's going on with these kids. A lot of them have autism. And this isn't me saying this. This is the Tavistock in England, the one gender clinic that all these kids went through. 35% of the kids there had moderate to severe autism. You can probably double that number if you include mild autism. A lot of these kids have depression, anxiety, ADHD, abuse. There might have been trauma or sexual abuse. Who knows what's going on? A lot of them just hate their bodies. And yes, some of them are going to grow up to be gay. And they don't match the stereotypes that we associate with each sex. But today, they go to these gender clinics. They're affirmed right away. They're not questioned. They're not challenged. These doctors aren't looking into underlying comorbidities. And they're giving them puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, often on their very first appointment.
Do you think a lot of this might stem from a modern identity crisis as well, where children are not getting proper mentorship at all levels, not just in the gender ideology, but all spectrums, has led to a crisis of identity, and now they're seeking refuge in this kind of cultural novelty?
Absolutely. These kids, especially the girls, are all exploring different identities. I got an email from a mother a few months ago in Washington State who was trying to find a counselor for her daughter, who's now identifying as trans, just to help her because she's struggling in life. But she can't even find a counselor because they have a conversion therapy law which makes it illegal to help a girl feel comfortable as a girl or a boy as a boy. But she sent me this email, and by the age of 13, this girl was already on her 6th identity. She'd been demi-boy, nano-boy, asexual, non-binary, demi-romantic, I think, and then trans. I don't even know what all those terms mean. But it's all the rage. It's cool to have some sort of alternate identity, whereas it's uncool to just be what they call cis, heteronormative, straight, whatever. That's not cool anymore. All these kids want to have some special identity.
Right. It's like a social force that everybody goes through in that middle school age, but with permanent altercations that they can't come back from. I'm curious, being out here at an event like this, what's been the response today to your signs? What have people said to you?
I'm getting a lot of support, actually.
Are you?
Some people are, of course, hostile. If I went more into that crowd over there, they're a little more extreme. I'd get more hate over there. But I'm just hanging out on the outskirts here, and I'm getting a lot of support. Not all of it, but there's always a lot of support. When I travel around North America, easily more than 90% of the general population agrees with my message. This is painted as a left versus right issue in the media, and I know when it comes to politicians it is,
Right.
but not with the general population. Moderate Democrats, as soon as they understand this issue at all, they agree with this issue. Parents agree with this issue. Parents know their kids, and they know we shouldn't be sterilizing kids, cutting off the breasts of minor-aged girls. It's totally nuts. So it's not left versus right, it's good versus evil. It's about common sense and science. And we have no science to back this at all. And we do have progressive countries like Sweden and Finland which have stopped this practice. England is, the Tavistock there, which is the gender clinic, was just condemned in a very long report about how there's no science or evidence or proper safeguards into any of the practices that they're doing. So it's all being reviewed by their Minister of Health. We have red states, Republican states down in the US who are starting to fix this issue. But it's going to be a long, hard battle because there's a lot of propaganda out there. But I'm just out here having one conversation at a time because that's all I can do.
Awesome. Where are you headed next?
Up to New York City for Pride.
All right. Well, I appreciate you being out here. Thanks for talking with me.
Pleasure.